Welcome back to Nightmare Logic, the Crypt Keepers' favorite podcast for news, theories, and reviews. We're your undead animatronic hosts, Christopher Smith,
Peter Sawyer,
and Taffeta Darling.
Join us today as Taffeta reveals her Tales from the Crypt obsession, and Peter reports live from the front line of the Indie Horror Festival circuit. Hey guys, it's been a while. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. I had a pretty decent week.
Man.
Good weekend.
Nice. Anybody do anything fun? See anything cool? Read anything?
I did. This weekend was Free Comic Book Day on Saturday, so that was exciting. And I did pick up some new comics. Some that were already like on my list to get. I'm finally picking up Narco. I mentioned you guys before when I talked about plastic and vinyl with Wagner and Hilliard, and so now they've got the new Narco comic out. So I'm stoked to read this. Very Hitchcockian comic. So I'm stoked to dive into issue 1 and 2 in that.
Cool.
My free picks over the weekend. It was kind of disappointing. It wasn't nearly as much because it's a weird thing to where the main company distributor who does it is gone. So now everyone's kind of scrambling. But I picked up this Planet from the Apes versus Predator versus Alien comic.
Oh, wow.
So I'm curious about that. And then there's also this new Masters of the Universe comic that I picked up as well. I'm kind of curious if it's going to tie into the new movie or whatever.
Cool, yeah.
So that was fun. And then I watched The Wicker Man because we just celebrated Beltane, which is kind of like the halfway point to Halloween and fall. So I love that movie Have you guys seen it, The Wicker Man? Am I just going?
Yeah,
well,
I've seen the original. Maybe I saw some of the remake, but I really can't remember shit about it.
Yeah.
I have actually not seen it. So.
It's pretty horrific. It deeps with, there's a lot of pagan lore into it, but it's also pretty brutal towards the end. It's got this big reveal. It's Christopher Lee, so that was pretty much consumed me this week. So yeah, I did more than I normally do. So there you go.
Taffeta, where did you buy the comics? Like, what's your go-to shop to buy comics in Los Angeles?
Now, yeah, it's House of Secrets. And then I really like Golden Apple. Golden Apple is kind of like the big one that's been around for a while, although it's a very small store. Actually, they all kind of are small stores, but I like the people there. I like the setting, and I like the variety. There's some shops I've been to where like they really lack in like indie stuff and like more obscure stuff. And so far, House of Secrets and Golden Apple are the two that I found that were pretty legit.
House of Secrets, I feel like that was in Silver Lake. Is that still there? Or
that's Burbank. It's over there off
It's in
Magnolia,
Burbank.
like
I
kind
wonder
of
if it's
with the Pinocchio restaurant and where all the like haunted and like horror strip is. There's like this big like horror
Monster
avenue down
Mile.
there. Yeah. It's over there.
Okay. I feel like it used to be in Silver Lake, but I could be wrong maybe.
Wait. What's Monster Mile? This is new to me.
That's where basically we have horror trivia, but it's like Halloween Town and the Mystic Museum and all this. It's all like
shop.
Yeah, it's a lot of like horror type stuff.
I didn't know there was a name for it. That's weird.
Yeah, because it's just condensed in this area, and I don't think anywhere else on the planet probably has something like that.
Right.
Yeah. The only thing that's kind of missing, I think, is maybe the Horror Cafe. It's over there like in NoHo, but I feel like the Horror Cafe.
Right.
In my head, I imagine they tried to get on that side of town, but I bet the rent over there is fucking ridiculous. But yeah, if we could just get Horror Cafe like over there as well, I think that would be the perfect place to hit up when you're in town for horror.
Well, Taffeta, I like your shirt.
I am my Tolkien, my metal shirt. What you
That's
got, Peter?
right.
What's yours say?
Midnight, they're metal as well.
Why is mine backwards?
Speaking about metal, we got a metal movie to talk about in releases.
Oh, cool. Which one?
Well, you'll find out, won't you?
I was about to ask you, Christopher, if you watched anything, but then realized you've been slaying away. So.
Yeah, I mean, I watched lots of things, but it was a lot of like commercial footage for the things I was editing. Really boring stuff. And then shot and edited a bunch of things for the county, and just had tons of work. So much work in 1 week. It was like 9 a.m. to 1 or 2 in the morning every day for like 12 days straight.
That's brutal, man. Are you on the other side of it?
Yeah. Finally, thank goodness
You can breathe.
Yeah, breathe. And I think I have some time to maybe focus on more creative, my own personal projects, I should say.
Nice.
So
right on.
Yeah, Peter, we'll have to talk.
Well, before we get into it, I guess I did see a couple
Yeah.
movies that I want to mention. The first is a film called Black Eyed Susan by Scooter McCree and Damien Maffei and Yvonne Emily Thacker star in it. And I found it very captivating. It's an uncomfortable watch, but it's very compelling, and it's super low budget. But it's basically this guy is pulled in, he needs work, and he has to work with this basically AI sex doll. And he's encouraged to like beat her and stuff. And it just goes in a very kind of dark direction. But what's really interesting about it is the ideas, because it's like it makes you think about like if you have a very awful problem and there's a dark way to solve it that's not as awful, but it's like, does it encourage this or does it solve it? It kind of gets into this. So there's some pretty big ideas that are, I don't know, I think linger with people, or it did with me, because I was like, Jesus Christ.
Right.
But it was interesting. It had this charm to it. I just didn't know what to expect.
You always come with like some interesting like
fucking
films
dark
and
shit.
deep cuts. Yeah, dark shit.
Well, I had heard about it a couple years ago, and it's not like the most bleak thing I've seen, but it's just relevant because AI and, sex dolls and stuff are a real thing.
Sex dolls are hot right now.
I mean, I don't know if they are, but it's interesting. There's some humanity into this too, so it's an interesting movie for sure.
Honestly, that's the best way to handle a topic like that, is like you use it to illustrate the humanity, I think.
Right. I mean, I don't really want to explain more, because it's, I think, going in vague made it a much more interesting ride, not knowing like where this was going. But I appreciated it because they got a lot of mileage out of not much.
Yeah.
Where'd you watch it at?
I think it's on Plex,
Okay.
which is free. But it might have been on something else too, because I don't know if it was Tubi or Plex, but I feel like it's on one of those streamers that's free with ads.
Very nice.
And the other movie I saw is a bit more known. That is They Will Kill You, which was done by Kirill Sokolov and stars Yazzie Beetz, Heather Graham, and Patricia Arquette. And did you guys ever see the trailer for that? That came out earlier this year.
I did. I don't remember it, I'll be honest, but I did watch the trailer.
It's this woman who basically goes to work at some hotel that you quickly learn is like a satanic cult, and she's there to rescue someone. But it's more of like a splatter version of Kill Bill than horror, even though it's got supernatural elements and satanic stuff. So it's kind of like you're like John Wicking it or Kill Bill, but it's fun. And it will keep that has some fun surprises in it as well. So if you like, action with a lot of gore, that might be your thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of a fan of Heather Graham a little bit. I went to a thing with her once, so now I like kind of like interested in her career.
No, I feel
from
that.
like a personal perspective. I want to check it out. Also, she's kind of a scream queen, you might say. She's been in a number of different kind of horrors and thrillers.
As of late, yeah. I know her from License to Drive originally, and then it's like Boogie Nights.
Wait,
I think
was she in the original License to Drive from the 80s?
Yeah, she was a love interest.
God, wow. Yeah, but she was also in, I want to say something in like the late 90s or early 2010s that was horror-esque or like thriller, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, she was in, I am blanking on the movie, but something like 5-10 years ago that made a small splash in indie horror.
Cool. I generally like her. She's kind of a weirdo, has like a different personality than you see in a lot of celebrities, I mean, weirdo in a good way.
Yeah. I think that was good pairing with Patricia Arquette, who I absolutely adore as well. And I like to see her coming into her own as like an older, I don't, not in a derogatory, but like as an elder actress. I love seeing her still kind of being around and stuff. Her in Severance was amazing. Oh my God, she was so good. Yeah. And she's also in one of my, even though it's a later season episode, one of my favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt as well. Like I think season 4, she makes a cameo in one of the craziest episodes of that season. Huh.
It's almost like we planned that.
But totally didn't.
I mean, I would also say Yazzie Beetz in it. Really, like I think she did a lot of her own stunts, or she really, it was like I said, John Wick level action.
Really cool.
There's some impressive, really crazy stunts. So it's beautifully made for that.
I think she's having a bit of a moment. Like I feel like she's acting a lot more and things.
I think she was like in an episode of Black Mirror and a couple other things, and I was like, oh, that's her. I'm much better with like older actors that you grow up with and than learning the new ones unless they're constantly in your face,
Right.
So what you're saying is you're getting old.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely been old.
Out of touch. Great. Well, let's head into the news. I got just a couple today. It's actually been somewhat of a slow week for horror news and genre news. But I think the biggest thing is you guys are probably already aware. Actually, I know you are because I sent it to you in the group chat. But Resident Evil has dropped a trailer, and this is the new one by Zach Kreger, friend of the pod. We will obviously post that on the show notes, and probably anyone listening to this has already watched it. And what's interesting maybe to discuss, though, is there's some controversy, of course, because the gamers are feeling like Zach is ignoring the game lore in the film, which I think he's said in interviews is intentional. And kind of addressing that, he was on a podcast where he said that he was aiming to capture more of the feeling of playing the games than the actual lore, and that this film is going to be like no other film that you've seen, according to him. So just curious, did you guys watch the trailer? What did you think? Like, is it going to be good? Does it look promising?
Yeah, I watched it. I think it looks great. And I have been very loyal to the game. So I love Resident Evils. I thought the first one I played was part 2, and I was like, this is scarier than any horror movie of the time. Mm-hmm. So I got hooked on it. So when I watched the trailer, I'm like, oh, you can totally see that he's channeling that, even if it's not a character in the game. I've played most of them. That doesn't bother me. The only Resident Evil movie I really like, there's 2 of them. I like the first one, and then I liked Welcome to Raccoon City, which kind of felt like part 2. But a lot of them are just big, crazy messes that don't capture the horror of it. And I think what Zach's doing is really trying to channel that. Mm-hmm. So it dawned on me that with movies like this, where you're following one character through the whole movie, you're like, well, they're probably not going to die until the end. So the stakes that kind of negates some of the stakes. It's like if you watch the It movie and it's the kids, you're like, well, they're all going to grow up. So none of them, they're all invincible in this movie. Right.
Interestingly, that never occurs to me when I'm watching it. I think I'm just, trying to stay in the moment, like go with the flow, and like which is weird because I'm always looking for, like, as a filmmaker, I can't help but think about the sort of what they're doing behind the scenes. Right. But like, for whatever reason, I like don't think too hard about the story and like kind of like what it means for later on in the story.
It's not like a flaw. I mean, there's plenty of movies that are amazing the whole way through, but then if you like distance yourself from it and think about it, you're like, oh yeah, like they have to do this to make the movie satisfying or whatever.
Right. Well, I think in American cinema, I mean, almost everybody always survives anyways, or all the heroes. So like, I think it's just
in horror movies, not always the case. So who knows how this one's going to end.
True. And I mean, they're lately in general, that's breaking, they've been breaking that tradition more and more, or that trope. And foreign films have been doing that forever. Like French films are somewhat notorious for ambiguous endings or, not resolving things. So
right. But back to Resident Evil, the trailer looks great, and I'm really excited to see that.
Me too. And in response to the criticisms that it's receiving, or at least the controversy around, gamers thinking it doesn't fulfill the lore. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not like a huge gamer. I do like games, but I kind of don't play them because I know I'll just spend all my time doing that. But first or second Resident Evil came out, my roommate was playing it all the time, and I'd sit and watch, and like I loved it. It was like scary. It's like I got nothing but good vibes about the game. But I would much rather it be a solid film than it adhere to some kind of like standard IP, just because that's what I'm there for, is to see a movie. I'm not there to honor the tradition, so.
And to be fair, the previous Resident Evil movies, even though they were very much tied to the game, weren't always that great. So.
Right. Well, and the other thing too, which I think these people should keep in mind, is just that it's a totally different format, and storytelling, when you have these different formats, it can't help but be different. Like whether it's a novel, it's going to be different than a movie, which is going to be different than a video game, because video games inherently choose your own adventure, and like how you make that interesting and fun and scary, you do that differently than how you do it in a linear story, like in a film that's visual, that you control the suspense and all of that. So I kind of think like, if I had some advice to the gamer people, just give it a chance and like back off and just take it on its own terms. Enjoy the film for what it is.
I agree with you, but Resident Evil does have a pretty rich narrative. Like all the you play the game or whatever, but you come to the same like story break moments that
right. It's not entirely open world, but it's like
right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's also it really depends on how far you deviate, I guess, is the caveat, or perhaps the obvious rebuttal to what I'm saying. Like if it's just totally basically a whole different world and they're just calling it Resident Evil, that's obviously not going to work either. Like if you're going to make something in the IP, it has to be consistent with that, but it doesn't have to be the same story and characters. And Zach has said that is not going to focus on Leon, I forget his last name, the main character of Resident Evil. It's like an ancillary character
from 2 and 4. It's centered in Raccoon City. I'm sure Umbrella is the villain. They got the monsters from it, so it's honoring it in the way that I think a lot of people will be happy. At least that's my hope.
I'm excited about a couple of the actors that I've seen that have been tied to it, like Zach Cherry, again tied to Severance, who I absolutely love in Severance. I've never seen him in anything else, and so I think it's neat that he's going to be involved in this. But he's also a hardcore gamer. I've seen interviews with Zach Cherry, and he really loves gaming, and this is one of the games he likes. So it's kind of neat to see a fan getting put into this big game, and then Paul Walter Hauser. Like, okay, I mean, we know him that he can be funny, but also in Blackbird, he can be very serious and crazy. Yeah. So I don't really know where he's going to fit in this narrative. I love Paul Walter Hauser. He's I was editing this weird Mark Wahlberg reality TV show about him and all his businesses, but he one episode, Paul Walter Hauser comes and hangs out with him, and I had to watch all the footage from the day. Not even though all the stuff that didn't make it in, and I just really liked him. He's like a nice dude. But also Zach's a big fan of the game, the Zach Kreger, the director, in addition to Zach Cherry. So like, it's cool. I get a bunch of people together who like the game. I'm sure whatever they make is going to be good. Yeah.
And I will say that video game adaptations into movies also, I don't feel like really have a great track record. I mean, maybe there's some that I haven't seen that are more geared for kids, but
yeah,
generally it's like, I mean, I know they have a new Street Fighter coming out as well, right? Like
that looks kind of fun.
Street Fighter, and in the coming soon releases, actually Mortal Kombat drops this week. So,
and I mean, I liked all those for what they were. I mean, the Van Damme Street Fighter had some great one-liners. He's like, have you lost your balls? Yeah. No, have you lost your mind? No, you've lost your balls. Like, genius.
Well, I mean, part of the issue is, honestly, the best video game remake ever, and actually, I don't know if it technically qualifies, but is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But
well, that's based on a comic book.
Right, I was thinking it was the comic first, but they did have the video game, which was also good. But I think part of the problem is a lot of these video game franchises that were turned into films, a lot of it happened in an era before effects were really good, and like before when Marvel started making comic films good, like that's when people started to believe in, the power of being able to adapt IP from other places like comic books, video games. But all the ones before that were pretty rough, if we're being honest,
Well, here's an interesting tidbit, and it's actually kind of ties into Tales from the Crypt in a way, is the Walter Hill movie Streets of Fire. It's a musical, and it's like an action crazy sequence. It's got Rick Moranis and Lee Ving's in it, and I'm forgetting the main actors. God damn it, I can't think of Tom Cody. But it's got Willem Dafoe's in it. It's this kind of, I don't want to say dystopian, but it's like 50s, but almost futuristic kind of world. And that was not adapted into a video game, but the creators of the beat 'em up game Final Fight took a lot from that. And kind of that was the blueprint for a pretty popular arcade game. That was
interesting.
I thought pretty interesting that they took a movie and kind of reverse engineered parts of it to make it a video game.
Well, I mean, that's probably happened more times than we realize, just because of like trying to make more money off of movies. Like Stranger Things has a pinball game, and lots of pinball IP that's come from films, I'm sure.
That's fun.
Yeah,
totally.
So the next piece of news we got here. So when Nicholas Winding Refn's new slasher film, which I didn't even know he was making, is going to be premiering at Cannes, and it also has a streaming release date of July. And it is called Her Private Hell. Have you guys heard of this one?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I did a little while ago.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. It stars Sophie Thatcher, who is in Companion and Heretic and Yellow Jackets. And she's a woman searching for her father, and as a strange mist engulfs their city, unleashes an elusive, deadly presence, which isn't a lot of detail, but it sounds intriguing. Apparently has a ton of different storylines, and it takes place in this like big city in the future, where actresses are gathering at a posh hotel where they're set to make a Barbarella type movie, and a heinous killer known as Leatherman is going around the city taking the lives of women. So I guess that's where the slasher part comes in. So I guess it also features Charles Melton, Christine Forsyth, Havana Rose Liu, Dougray Scott, and last but not least, Diego Calva. I don't know. I'm interested. I'm going to check it out. I really like him as a director. So,
Yeah. I like anything that's supernatural and like, ominous or esoteric, especially when you say something about a mist. I mean, I instantly go to like Stephen King's The Mist, which I'm sure is going to be completely different. But that alone, I'm like, oh, cool. I like, things that are like, hidden. So I'm in.
Yeah. Well, he kind of describes it as it's an original story that's like driven by glitter, sex, and violence, which, I mean, say no more.
Right. I was on board with glitter, so.
Yeah, totally. I guess this is kind of like, I mean, he did Neon Demon, right? So like,
yeah,
I think he's just kind of like visually into that vibe or something. I mean, I don't know how close it is, but.
Yeah, I mean, I read once that like Demons is one of his favorite movies, favorite horror movies. Love that movie. I mean, who doesn't like Drive? But yeah, Neon Demon was cool. And I think he has a condition with like not a color blindness, but something which affects why he chooses neons in certain colors that pop in the way they do.
Right.
In his films, which gives it like an
really
interesting
cool,
style.
Yeah, I love neon as like a visual, like in films.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
It tickles your eyes,
Even in video games too, like one of my main allures of like cyberpunk, and I'm gonna start it again just because that city is done in so much neon and it's so like weird, and I don't know, it is my like it's my aesthetic. So yeah, I feel that.
Cyberpunk is actually by far one of my favorite kind of genres. There's just not enough done in cyberpunk world. Yeah. So, okay, last but not least.
It's the best way to make a wish, a one wish with a wish.
When you hear the magical jingle, just make a wish and snap the willow, the one wish willow.
It's the best way to make a wish, a one wish with a wish.
What are you wishing for? Make your wish come true with the one wish willow. Please wish responsibly. Wishes may cause unexpected behavior, violent tendencies, and self-mutilation. Do not use if you're experiencing insecurity or extreme obsession.
So what you guys just heard was a new potentially viral marketing campaign from the team behind Obsession. And when Obsession hits the theater, going to have I don't know how wide, but like basically a number of theaters are going to get branded buckets for their popcorn, which include a One Wish Willow, so you can make your own wish, I guess, and have it go horribly wrong. But this, just thought I'd mention this one because it's keeping in with the trend of interesting marketing campaigns we're seeing in more horror films, and I just love stuff like this. So
at the Phoenix Film Festival, the horror people that I was talking to that had seen Obsession were talking about that, and they were like super stoked on the One Wish Willow. So like I think only one of them got it, and they were like, God damn it. So yeah, I mean, now I'm curious. I'm like, shit, maybe I should definitely go see this and order popcorn and make sure I get it.
Yeah, totally.
The popcorn bucket game is just outrageous these days. Jesus. I love it, though.
Yeah. So with the one other thing that we learned this week is that it's rated R for strong, bloody violence, grisly images, sexual content, pervasive language, and brief graphic nudity. So,
all things we love.
Exactly. Bring on the violence and sex, I guess. I just don't get horror movies that aren't rated R. Like, why? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's kind of interesting when, I think The Ring is a very scary movie, PG-13. Poltergeist, I think, was PG.
That's right. It was. Yeah.
So, I mean, there are like some exceptions to that. It's like if you don't have to be gory. You know?
Fair. I think my point is more just that why limit yourself? You know what I mean? Like it should let it go where it wants to go.
No, true. But I think they'll make more money at the theater if it's PG-13 because you can get a broader audience.
I know. But can we have something for us people who like R-rated?
No, they do. And a lot of, I would say most of my favorite movies are R-rated.
Yeah.
Usually the rating systems evolve too, because like PG-13 and PG in like the 80s is like almost like a hard PG-13 are here these days. So I feel like, that's how I watched all this stuff, is because it was PG, but I was like 8 years old, watching other stuff that I shouldn't have been watching because of the rating systems.
It's true.
Well, were like, cool.
I think PG-13 actually came on the scene later because of that. They needed something between PG and R. But I only watch NC-17 movies, so.
Where are they streaming?
The two movies.
Okay, just kidding.
I'm over 2A, but whatever.
The Christopher, PG-13. There was one movie that came out before, and I cannot remember the name of it, but it was Temple of Doom and Gremlins was when they were like, all right, we need some middle ground between PG and R rating.
Yeah, Gremlins is one that'll get you, because it's like, it looks like a kid's movie.
It is. And that whole Christmas tree light scene where she gets on the elevator or the stair seat, like that scared the crap out of me when I was younger. So yeah.
Well, the story Phoebe Cates tells about her dad as a Santa Claus is so dark.
It's subtle too. You have to really kind of get it. Like I didn't understand it until years later because again I was very young. So yeah.
I need to rewatch that. I honestly haven't seen it in like probably 25 years. So
wow.
The script is worth reading too because it's a different ending than what they shot. At least the script version I got. I was like, oh shit, this is kind of cool.
Surprise. Cool. All right, well, let's talk about what's coming out this week, which, again, is not very much. We, as I mentioned or alluded to earlier, Mortal Kombat 2 is dropping, which, isn't horror, but it's, I guess you can kind of consider it a genre.
Well, I mean, I would say it does have the fatalities of the game, which is gore. Mm-hmm. So that kind of leans a little bit that way.
Otherworldly monsters teleporting portals into like demonic places.
The thing is like, I don't know. I watched the trailer in prep for this and I think they're going to make it entertaining for sure. But I'm all for video game adaptations like Resident Evil, things like that. But when it comes to like P versus P video games, it's like, what's the story, and then they try to make a story that always feels kind of shoehorned in. So I think honestly, the more that they just focus on the fighting, the better. Yeah. Which hopefully they probably will. Assuming they will.
I'm assuming like most of those kind of movies, it's like all about the tournament and they need certain people or characters from all over the world that are the best,
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
I thought it was interesting, and I'm not one of these people who thinks about this that often, but that they chose the sort of like white American guy as the hero. And he's like, of course, he's like this dummy, and then he comes in and he fights all these like really capable people of different ethnicities from all over the world, which I have no idea how they handle it. I'm not saying anything about it. I just thought it was an interesting thing to note that was like, they're like, what angle are we going to take? I don't know if that's the story in the video game or not, but like,
Is that the Johnny Cage character?
yeah,
He's like
the
Mr.
main-
Hollywood.
Yeah. But he's like, oh, I don't want to be here. I don't, it's like, I'm not a hero. Like, I don't know. It just feels very like on the nose of like, or old school and like the type of story they would choose to tell with it, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? I feel like I saw the trailer at some point, or did it just come out and I'm imagining that?
Yeah. I don't know when the trailer dropped initially, but I mean, honestly, like it's not a type of movie that I would normally like seek out, but I just thought it was worth mentioning today on the podcast. So I watched it,
Yeah. I saw the first one in theaters, but that was like one of my very first games I played on my Game Boy back in the day. Like I'm a big fan of Mortal Kombat, and so I've watched all the movies so far.
Yeah, but are they good though? Like, let's be honest.
The first one, for what it was when it came out as
When
an
it came out,
adaptation, it's tolerable, and I still think it holds up. Part 2 was they're like, oh, we have all these new characters, but it also went along the lines with the Mortal Kombat 2 movie that came out. Anything after that, no, because it does not have Christopher Lambert, and that's who I absolutely love is Raiden. I think he's perfect as a Raiden. So
Gotcha.
that's-
But I will say the video game was, groundbreaking in its time, and we should all respect it for that.
My beef with Mortal Kombat is like I was a Street Fighter 2 guy, so the controls I could never like. I think I finally learned how to do something with the reptile, but I struggled with the fatalities and all that.
Yeah. Didn't we used to play a lot of Street Fighter 2 at your house back
Probably.
in high school?
Yeah,
I remember Tony Hawk. We'd stay up all night playing Tony Hawk and Bond, but I think Street Fighter 2 might have been part of that.
dude, game's a classic.
So Mortal Kombat was written by Jeremy Slater, Ed Boon, John Tobias, and directed by Simon McQuaid. And it stars Carl Urban, Ludi Lin, Jessica McNamee, which that's a hilarious name, I gotta say. It's like Bodie McBoatface. It's Jessica McNamee. No? Okay. Got a little support here, guys. Come on. Okay. So the film features fan favorite champions, now joined by Johnny Cage himself, and they're pitted against each other in an ultimate battle to defeat the dark rule of Shao Kahn and threatens the very existence of Earthrealm and its defenders. So next in releases is we're getting a metal documentary about Iron Maiden. It's called Iron Maiden Burning Ambition, and it's a documentary directed by Malcolm Verneel, written by David Teague. And for those who don't know, David Teague is a kind of legendary documentary editor and personality. Which I mentioned because I think that indicates that it's probably going to be pretty good. It basically follows the band. It spans 5 decades following Iron Maiden, and it charts their iconic rise to one of the biggest bands in music history, and then also obviously some of the challenges that they've had along the way. The trailer looks pretty good. A lot of actual archival footage from an era when that wasn't common to be videoing and filming everything. So it looks good. If you're a fan of the band, I think you'll like it.
I haven't seen that band, but I'm familiar with them, but it wasn't a band that I really got into. I really only knew it because of like Evil Ernie, right? That's the skeleton,
Yeah,
like their
the
main
skeleton.
logo and stuff. And
Eddie.
so that's what I would see. Eddie.
That's right.
Evil Eddie, is that what it is? And I would see that like there was all these like, flea markets back in the day that we would go to get like random stuff, but there was always like shirts and like, blankets and random stuff with that logo on it. And so it just kind of has been embedded in my head, but I never got into them. But I'd be
Oh,
curious.
they got some jams.
They do. And, they do have the best artwork for a band of that era for sure. Last but not least, Faces of Death. It's just been announced that it's going to be released on streaming on May 12th. So that is before the next podcast comes out. So I thought I'd mention it here in the news or the release section. But it's not, obviously, it's already doing a theatrical. So this is new to streaming on the 12th. I didn't say where, though, so I guess we'll find out. But definitely video on demand and probably some streaming platforms as well. I'm curious to see which ones.
Yeah, that's a deep cut. That was actually some of my first introductions to like some like, you know, over the top stuff back in the day, and is definitely responsible for the way I view horror and the way I view a lot of things when it came to that stuff.
Yeah, are you going to check out this remake, or what are your?
I mean, I'm curious. I mean, I want to, because I realize now I'm assuming it's not going to be like the lore of it being like actual real footage of stuff like, you know, the Mondo stuff back in the day, because that stuff was always, you weren't really sure. But I will say the stuff that I watched was actual videos of like slaughterhouses, and that stuff really fucked me up because I wasn't expecting that, because, you know, it's a compilation of random stuff. And so it was those slaughterhouse videos that really, really fucked me up as like an 11-year-old, which became eventually responsible for me not eating meat.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I was like 12, that was like a coveted thing to get your hands on. 'Cause you're like, oh my God, it's showing people really dying. And some of it was faked. I forget which one. Maybe it was off of The Worst of Faces of Death. Was like a skydiver in the Everglades or somewhere, and he gets blown into an alligator farm. And you're just like, everyone's watching in horror as he's getting eaten.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing they could do. Yeah,
Wow.
grisly stuff. I'm very interested because I'm like, you could go so many ways with how that could be a movie. And if they're giving it a narrative, that seems fascinating to me.
You know, for a bunch of people who run a horror podcast, you would think we'd be a little more up to date on this, but I think that there might be, the angle of it might actually be like more meta, like kind of how they did with the new Anaconda, where it's like,
Right.
but now I want to look it up because, you know, how did they approach it? Because I mean, that was the whole conceit of the first one, was that you don't know what's what, you know?
I was holding my breath.
Yeah. So according to ChatGPT, it's a reimagining of the 1978 cult classic, directed by Daniel Goldharber and released on April 10, 2026, starring Barbie Ferret and blah, 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 blah. Okay. It follows a content moderator investigating viral, seemingly real murder videos that mimic the original film's infamous death scenes, blending modern social media dangers with 90s slasher vibes. So yeah, it's like a meta, like it's like a real film that's taking a meta approach by them, you know, investigating these things based on the original. So yeah.
One of the things that interests me is the director is the guy who did How to Blow Up a Pipeline, which seems like a wild pivot to this. So that was part of what made this compelling for me.
Yeah, it is interesting, actually. I guess that brings us to the main section of today, which is Tales from the Crypt.
I love
And
Tales from the Crypt.
Who's doing the voice?
That's
that wasn't
good.
bad. Yeah, that's good. That was pretty good, Chris.
I wasn't going to attempt, so good job.
okay.
I can't top that, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Well, you want to take it away first, Taffeta?
Oh, I don't know if I'm going to take it away, but I'm excited because finally the Tales from the Crypt series, it's the adaptation of the EC comics from the 50s, is finally getting an actual home for streaming. For, I'd say, probably my whole adult life, I've been looking for that, like in a streaming service or just the reruns and stuff. I've got it on DVD, but Shudder has announced as of May 1st, they are going to be releasing every season throughout June on every Friday. And I'm stoked for that. And it is why now I subscribe to Shudder, because all my other seasons are in storage. And it's just one of these series that I loved as a comic. And I will die on this hill that this series is the best comic adaptation of anything between the series and the live adaptation. It's panel for panel, and it's done so well, better than any other comic adaptation out there. And I'm sure people won't like that and maybe forget that Tales from the Crypt is a comic. And it's just one of those things. It's a comfort show for me, which may be weird for some people, but a lot of my stuff tends to be comfort, is horror. So anyways, I'm stoked that they are getting an exclusive streaming service for all 7 seasons, and they're going to be the fully uncut episodes. They're going to be the fully uncut episodes, because when they filmed them, they actually did like a mild version of every episode for every uncut episode, so it could later be like reran on like Fox and stuff like that. So I'm stoked.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
can you imagine having to do like every season? Like there's 93 episodes. So there are 93 episodes that are full on and then reshot to have just, you know, some of that less gore, less sex, maybe cover the nipple, maybe cover the butt and stuff like that. And just these like nuanced little areas.
So I thought it was for HBO originally. What they also did one for Fox. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because HBO had, the uncut stuff. But then like whenever they did the reruns for a little bit, they couldn't. It may not have been like Fox. It may have been like ABC, whatever the local
but they
channel was.
syndicated it to like a network television.
And so those were actually edited because, you know, they were on
right. I just from a filmmaking perspective, it's interesting that they had that plan from the beginning, you know, because like they didn't know it was going to be a hit in theory.
The funny thing is, so I looked up the history because I was like, how did this come about? And so a little background on it. It premiered in 1989 and ran through 96. I didn't realize it ran that many years, even though I knew there was a lot of seasons because I too have the DVDs. But there's basically a failed pilot from a different show called Two-Fisted Tales that Fox passed on. So basically, I guess that's where HBO wanted it because they were like, hey, we could get some original content that's uncensored, and that would be competing with home video rentals, which is why I'm like, yeah, so they went, that would have been the appeal, that they were showing gore and extra scary things.
Right. Interesting. But yeah, I agree with you, Taffeta. Like I have very clear memories of being pretty young and watching Tales from the Crypt and really loving it. And, you know, in fact, I think I could even attribute to like my very early desire to work in special effects, which ultimately led to me wanting to be a filmmaker, is from watching Tales from the Crypt and the Crypt Keeper and the animatronics and some of the like, you know, practical effects they did were really cool.
All of it, like from the opening scene that was like, you know, it's a miniature, you know, castle. That whole opening scene that's iconic with the cemetery and going up the castle, the haunted house. That's a miniature. To Mike Voss's artwork that he did for all episodes to recreate like the look of the original EC comics. Like he created those covers that you see at the very end of, you know, after the Crypt Keeper laughs, and then it kind of transitions into like whatever the Crypt Keeper's saying, and then he talks about it, and then there's that art. And that's what hit me. Like that was like the main thing for me because I've always really, really loved like art. And so that was what kept me going, is I wanted to see how he would draw this stuff every episode. So everything was just so perfectly put together, and I can't think of another series of horror that is able to execute it from the beginning to the ending with all these stars, given like, you know, it had 7 seasons, and so towards the end maybe like 6 and 7, because I think the last season they sent overseas wasn't as good, but like the first like 5 to 6 seasons of just the core stuff is just, I think it's perfect.
I got a question for you. When at the beginning they always show the comic, right? And like panels from the comic. Are those the real comic books, or are those like that the episodes are based on, or did they make those images for the television show?
They made those. That comic is by Mike Vosberg. He's the one that was a storyboarder for a lot of that stuff. And then he did those comics that you're talking about, because each episode is based off a small story in Crime Patrol or Weird Science or any of the other EC titles they had. But every one of those 93 episodes, he did the original art to make it look like that transition. At my time at Heritage, I actually got to see a lot of that original art and his, like, you know, rough sketches for all of that. And that was amazing. That just set me. I was like, oh my God.
You didn't bid on any of it?
No, I know when I'm done. I know when I can't afford stuff.
Taffet, here's another question for you. Do you know if every issue of the Tales from the Crypt comic had been turned into an episode of the show?
Not every. Because, because there wasn't actually like a Tales from the Crypt comic at first. It was like Crime Patrol, and it was Weird Science, and it was like Weird Fantasy that had a bunch of stuff under the EC. And it wasn't, I think, until maybe like it got pretty popular as an ongoing series that they put it into Tales from the Crypt. Because even the movie Weird Science, the John Hughes movie, that is from like a small story in the Weird Science EC collection itself.
I see.
So yeah.
So they could have theoretically kept going as a show.
Absolutely. Yeah. And anyone out there that wants to, you should. Because there's a lot of stories that have not been tapped. And
this might end up, if it, you know, really boosts Shudder subscription and
Yes.
is a sign, then they might remake this.
I was about to say this may be like a prelude to Test the Waters, just to be like, hey, because they're the ones who actually revived Creepshow, which was also kind of
Right.
a competitor of Tales from the Crypt, and it kept going despite some of its not so great movies or series adaptations. But Tales from the Crypt has been one of these things that's been on a hard lockdown for a very long time. So that's why I was really like, oh my God, you guys are releasing it, at least for us. It's so great.
Well, any remake, they have to use the original puppet, because if they tried to like make it CG or, make it too fancy, I feel like it would just kill the spirit.
What I found interesting is, I guess also Tales from the Crypt was originally going to be a film that became an anthology, and then Body Bags, which was like what Showtime wanted to compete with Tales from the Crypt. They brought on John Carpenter and they filmed a couple, but then they decided to turn that into an anthology feature. So you kind of got the best of both worlds if you're into that stuff.
Yeah. Very cool. And, we should also it's a small thing, but the logo is so iconic as well. I don't know if that font existed before Tales from the Crypt, but I mean, that is like basically the classic horror font that everybody uses now.
Yeah, I'm over looking at my DVDs right now. I'm like, that is really a good font.
Yeah, well, and you got the theme, right, with Danny Elfman. I mean, The Simpsons probably the biggest piece of music that he's composed that's the most famous, but the Tales from the Crypt theme was also just like, that's always going to be in my head.
I mean, it's funny you say that, because this is an aside, but I feel like the most famous Danny Elfman thing I would have said is something like more from like Nightmare Before Christmas or Tim Burton movie. but
the Simpsons theme?
No, it is. You're right. You're not wrong. I just didn't even think about it. But like I would have said like, a Tim Burton film. But
Yeah.
I mean, he's associated with Tim Burton, but off the top of my head, I don't even know if I could pull one from that. I could name some Oingo Boingo songs.
Dude, I mean, he probably would have been way more richer than any of us will ever be just from writing the theme song to The Simpsons.
Yeah. And it's a nice juxtaposition, because that was right around the same time both those series were coming out. So you've got this like really bright, animated, family friendly, show. But then at HBO, they're also like, come up with something just really, really creepy, dude.
And he's like, oh, I like this better. Like,
yeah. Again, the production, everything was just so nuanced with this production that just made it so perfect. And I'm so glad we all get to experience it again.
Totally.
As someone who grew up watching, you had the Twilight Zone, Amazing Stories, Tales from the Dark Side, right? The Tales from the Crypt felt like Tales from the Dark Side with a budget. Because if you watch the Tales from the Dark Side episodes, you can really see that that's like a shoestring thing. But then you look at Tales from the Crypt and you're like, yeah, man, there's serious production value of the time.
Yeah.
Into it.
I was thinking a lot about this when I was watching these episodes that we're going to discuss, because, well, it is from the 80s, right? And it has that flavor for sure. But
89.
89, yeah. But like, I was like, what? There's nothing in a lot of these stories that is actually that expensive to make. Like,
well,
and they're all like 20 minutes long or something, right?
They're 30 minutes, but there's no commercials. But they did have really big
30
stars.
minutes maybe with the wraparound, but like the actual stories are about, I mean, they're 25 minutes, but like, that's how long Last Call was. So I was just like, the original version of Last Call before we edited it down some, but like, I was just thinking about, they're basically making a short film a week, and none of it was that crazy. I mean, well, some of them, okay, out of the ones that we watched, perhaps they were a little bit easier to pull off, but there are other episodes that are like...
The money went into the monsters, into the animatronics,
exactly.
into the makeup, because it didn't progress.
I imagine the cast, you have like Schwarzenegger at the height of his powers in an episode.
Good point.
And I mean, all the producers is like Robert Zemeckis and Walter Hill and Richard, really big,
yeah, that's absolutely
players.
true. It was more just that I noticed that it was almost all soundstage. They clearly had a soundstage, and they're like, well, this will be an episode.
Yeah, but I mean, it's HBO who Game of Thrones episodes, right? Look at that. So they had the money to
Yeah, it was the home box office. That was them in their prime. This was them like, throwing around that fuck you money to all the network televisions to where they were like, here we are. Like, we're coming out with a lot of stuff. And Tales from the Crypt, I think, really set them apart, so much so that it got a animated series, which I still watch. You can find that on Tubi. And it's still, it's not like, obviously it's not creepy like this, but, it's kind of like a Scooby-Doo with just a little bit more ghosts in it, Yeah. And then it had the spin-off movies. So I think it's done pretty well considering.
You know what I think is interesting about it too, and I don't know if you're planning on talking about this, but the way that they tell the stories, it's like there's always a twist, and there's always like, it's interesting because it's always like there's a morality to it.
Yes.
Which I find interesting.
That's
like you don't see that in horror
Yes.
often, but.
Well, I'll say the 3 episodes we're talking about are all driven by greed. Like they're mining a sin of people, right? Mm-hmm. And what's also really interesting about this is it shows you don't need a likable protagonist, because you kind of want to see these people get theirs, right?
That's right.
It kind of brings that out, because it's not usually a good person who's leading the story. They're usually a little bit immoral.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's kind of what fuels it for me too, is because as someone who has a very strong sense of justice, and I think that's why I like a lot of these horror things, because I know there's so much unjust in the world, like in the world we live on, that I love being able to see some of these people get their, it comes back around. Yeah, it always comes back around in Tales from the Crypt, and a lot of these anthologies or vignettes and stuff.
I'm curious. Do you think that the writers of the comic book, like, that was their intent? And then the series just went with that, or did the people developing the series were like, let's pick stories where it has this kind of moral part to it?
I would think Bill Gaines for sure did, because he wrote all these stories pretty much the same way. Like, they all have that lesson in there. There is a lesson in all these stories, and it usually is. There's very real horrors in the world, and he turned them into these stories to where those people would eventually get theirs.
What years did the publication for the original comics?
I think
do you have decades?
I think 59. Yeah, 59. And then they went through that whole, there was a big hysteria about it, and they had the trials of innocence and stuff that we kind of mentioned in one of these other shows that we had talked about, to where like he had to go to Congress and they had to like literally, show that they weren't Satanists. This was probably the first round of the, satanic panic, so much so it led to the Comics Code because of this interrogation and because of Dr. Frederick Wortham.
I wonder if the morality aspects of it were to anticipating a bit like the reaction, like, I could delve into this dark topic as long as it's saying something somewhat positive, or let the takeaway.
Yeah. And sorry, I want to say it's 1949, not 59.
Whoa,
when the very first Crime Patrol came out.
Does that predate the Twilight Zone? Because that also kind of had a moral narrative driving the episodes.
I don't know exactly when the Twilight Zones came out, but yeah, the very first publication of ECs was 1949. I was a decade off, sorry. So I would say it probably does maybe predate the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I think Twilight Zone was the 50s, right? Like the TV show.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe that was in the zeitgeist of short story form. Mm-hmm. Like, for that reason that, hey, the world's not just, but if you create these stories that are,
maybe someone will learn from it.
Right.
Yeah, so it looks like the Twilight Zone originated in 1959. So
yeah. Okay,
10 years later.
Okay, yeah. Wow. So just about a decade before when they were doing their first very small stories.
It's interesting that the Tales from the Crypt, the TV show, was early 80s or late 80s?
Late 80s. Late 80s. 89 through 96 is what I...
So they basically took comics from 40 years earlier and turned it into a TV show. That's that's a bit of a gamble, right? I mean, when you look at the way that the industry works now, they're not buying IP from, 40 years ago. Like, maybe they are, I guess, but it's usually like a reboot of something
mainstream stuff.
Yeah, the Thing kind of was, and the Blob was, and those were picked from like the 30s and 40s and 50s and stuff. And I think maybe at the time, whenever this was starting to become bigger, like we were coming off of that, you know, the whole decade of 80s slashers and monsters and, you know, what's the next thing. And so it would kind of make sense that they would go into the horror archives to see what they could pull from.
And it's all that stuff is like new but different, you know, or same but different, you know, but it's like, oh, it's obscure. So it's like, it's an IP. I mean, I don't know how far we go back where IPs were what like Hollywood had its sights set on. But yeah, if it's a source, it's got a proven audience. It makes more, it's less of a risk.
It's fair. Well, we want to talk about these episodes.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, you can go over some of them. I mean, because there's only 6 that have been released. And so like a few of my favorites are in this one. And so, yeah, so I was like, we can talk about, you know, a few of them. Yeah,
let's do it. What's the first one?
My favorite of all time is Sin Deep, because I love Leah Thompson so much. And when I met her a few years ago at a convention when they were doing the whole Back to the Future thing, like I actually showed up with one of my Tales from the Crypt DVDs that she sent from that episode. And had her sign it. And, you know, she did the whole voice and she like broke down into character and I lost it. I was like, are you kidding me? She's like, wasn't that such a great character? And I was like, you still nailed that voice. Damn. And she was like, I love that so much. It was one of my favorite highlights. And, but yeah, Sin Deep is just, I don't know. I don't know what attracts me to it. I think it's the guy, the bodega guy. Like he's just so evil and weird and everything about it is so grimy. And like here she is as this like, you know, gorgeous young woman willing to do anything she can to keep her beauty. And then at the end, everyone still gets fucked over.
Looking at it, I was like, this is interesting because it's Leah Thompson. And of course she was in Back to the Future, Robert Zemeckis. But it was directed by Howard Dutch. I might be mispronouncing that. And he was the director of Pretty in Pink. So I was like, that's kind of wild.
But it was crazy to think. Pretty in Pink was like, for those like 80s high school movies, was a little bit more edgy than the other ones, you know?
Yeah, I can see that. But it was written by Fred Decker, who wrote another one. He's Monster Squad. So it's cool seeing all these names, you know, going back and being a little more educated on, you know, who the filmmakers and writers and everyone were at the time.
It's probably one of those series we have some now, like The Simpsons is a good example, but like a lot of the Nexus where a lot of like upcoming talent got their start. Not to say that everyone that involved is upcoming. I don't mean that at all. But like, you know, there's just every once in a while there are these projects where it's like it brings together like a ton of people who go on to define the next few years of, you know, pop culture, television, movies, that kind of stuff.
I mean, they eventually did like, you know, and this again is a few seasons in where they just superimposed and used like, you know, my mind is blank. Oh my gosh, Bogart.
Humphrey Bogart.
In an episode, you know, which was really weird, and how they did that to where they actually did like a reflective mirror to where you could have his voice that they actually used, and then they would sometimes put him, because it was done in a first person point of view, as you know, Humphrey Bogart's narration, and then sometimes you would see him in a reflection, or you would see him as other people saw him. So I mean, they even brought in like dead people to come play into their world, and I don't know very many people at the time who could have gotten away with pulling the essence of Humphrey Bogart into a horror series.
Hungry Bogart.
Well, now that's a reality because you have all the AI. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Shit, yeah.
But no, I remember that episode now that you mention it. I don't remember much of the crime ones that were later, but you said that was like a later episode, right?
Yeah.
But I do remember that.
Yeah, they pulled a lot of the horror stuff and the weird sci-fi stuff at the beginning, and then towards the end they kind of started going and pulling a lot more thrillers and more of the crime noirs, which was the one where Bogart made a cameo.
But even the horror ones are like mostly crime, at least the ones we were going to discuss, right? Like crime is a huge element driven by greed. That's...
Yeah, all of them were. Yeah, because even the Santa Claus one and All Through the House... I mean, that is literally the wife is, you know, trying to take her husband out.
Going back to like how it originated, I mean, in the 40s, I imagine like that was the root of horror was probably more about crime and things like that than like a supernatural thing. Because I feel like that was more something that came about later.
Well, no, you still had all the famous monsters, right? That
Well, there were monster features and stuff, but there wasn't I think when you really think about, we're looking at Tales of the Crypt through a modern lens, and now so much of our horror is permeated by spirits and demons and supernatural and occult kinds of things, and not not to say that didn't exist before, but I just wonder if the 40s lens is just different,
Right. Yeah, we need someone from the 40s.
Yeah, so that was a good episode. I really, she was such an unlikable, would you even call her the, what's the word for the person that you're
Antagonist?
Yeah. I mean, I guess she was the protagonist.
Oh yeah, for sure. She was definitely the villain. I mean, she has no trouble killing people.
But there is no protagonist, right? I mean, it's only an antagonist.
Yeah, and most of
But
these there really isn't a protagonist in these episodes. Everything is just people getting their own. It's just, yeah.
I mean,
there's no hero.
I could spoil. Am I cool to spoil something about this episode?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay, so
Spoilers.
she does kill a pimp, and I'm like, hey, that's actually a good deed, right?
Right. Right.
But then it kind of goes from there. Where
Well, wait, hold up. You don't know anything about this pimp. Maybe he was the pimp with a heart of gold. Maybe he had a family he was just trying to support. You don't know.
that's true. We didn't really get his backstory,
And I think
but
this
he was mean to her though.
But I
That's
think
true.
the main point of that was showing that she's ruthless, and she
Yeah,
she didn't even think
of
about it.
course.
She didn't try to run away. She didn't try to and it's not victim shame. She didn't she went straight for the kill, and I think that just shows where her intent was from the beginning. It was about she's gonna kill
Right.
whatever that gets in her way.
But I love how it's older movies and TV shows and comic books and things. It's they rely on stereotypes. It's we got to make her bad, so of course she's a prostitute, or how in earlier movies, punk rockers were always just bad people,
Yeah.
It's
It's a weird Pretty Woman-esque type, episode or story, where
Yeah.
she's trying to go from being a, call girl to moving up into the penthouse, because when she winds up getting that money, she does this huge transformation. She goes from wearing these, she even does that symbolic thing where she takes off all her, uncool clothes or her,
Right.
night collar clothes and throws them on the floor, and she goes and she gets all these really pretty stuff to go chase, the guy with the money.
Yep. Which is
Maybe
every
that
girl's
didn't help
dream, right? Yeah. No, it didn't help her. I mean, yeah, the guy isn't all that likable either, though, really. So
Not likable
Right.
doesn't mean murder worthy, though.
no.
I don't think he was worth the killing, because he desperately wanted to, be
That's
with
true.
her, and he did like her. He even said, "Yes, you are the girl of my dreams," and
But only because she was pretty. I mean,
essentially
Initially.
at first, yeah.
Right.
But maybe that does.
Well, maybe she was also a challenge for him too, right?
Yeah,
you know.
he did like that. He liked the little,
The chase.
and perhaps that's the irony in this whole thing, right? Is that if she'd just been
Oh.
herself, she didn't need it. She didn't need the
She didn't. She just needed the money to get one new dress. That's all she needed was one dress.
Right, exactly.
Well, yeah. I mean, now that I think about it, that's kind of a plot hole because I guess she wouldn't have had access to that party had she not earlier, without getting into it.
Right.
But yeah, that is kind of an interesting thing to consider. I will say the final punchline, I think most people will see coming. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? I don't want to get into
Yeah.
spoiling that, but yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. A lot of this stuff, it's not it's totally hard to miss it coming, and it's not it's unpredictable because you kind of know how these things are going to end with Tales
Right.
from the Crypt stuff. It's always got the same ending. You know someone's going to get theirs.
Right.
But that's
Right.
what's so satisfying about it, right? I mean, I know that generally we don't consider predictability a good thing in a lot of films and TV shows, but in this case it kind of is because it's you're anticipating that sort of less the comeuppance, if you will. And so when it finally comes, you're like, yes,
Yeah, you
that
just don't
feels
know what
good.
direction.
Yeah,
It's almost like Columbo. You know how it starts at Columbo, but you don't know how he's going to get to that conclusion. And that's kind of like how
Right.
these episodes, you
Yeah,
know
that's
something's
true.
happening, but you don't know how it's going to get there or what exactly is going to get them.
Yeah, you and your Columbos.
I had to throw that in. Shut up.
No, hey, like I'm a fan. I remember, there's a whole generation of kids listening at home who are like, "What the hell is she talking about? This Columbo guy again?" Cool. And what about the other episode, and All Through the House, which has also been released?
Yeah.
That or do you want to lead? Or
No,
do you
no,
want
go
me
ahead.
to-
Yeah.
I was going to say, personally, that was one of the ones that I remembered the most as a kid. And maybe just because it's like you have a deranged Santa Claus. But when I was watching it, I was like, this is like really stacked. If Fred Decker, I mentioned it, he wrote the last one. He wrote this too. Again, the guy who directed Monster Squad and Night of the Creeps. And then it's funny because then the lead actress is Mary Ellen Trainor, also from Monster Squad and Goonies. Robert Zemeckis directed it. Then you have Larry Drake, who is from Darkman and Dr. Giggles.
Creepiest Santa ever.
Yeah, and it's cool because it starts with one thing and then throws this wild card thing, and you're like, oh shit, we're going with this.
Yeah.
And it's the isolation of it and the winter, the snow.
It's so
all that.
well executed.
Yes.
I this is actually my favorite of the three that we watched in prep for this.
Same.
And just the technique, the directing techniques of like reveals and like, the economy of the way that the story is told, it's just like, it's like a masterclass in how to do a short film.
It's panel for
appreciate it.
panel for the comic.
Wow.
Every word, every scene, every
Really?
cut, every angle. It literally looks like the comic book. I'm not lying. Like, again, like I'll find the clips and we can use them, but it is
Yeah.
panel for panel
Right.
from it.
Yeah, that'll be in the show notes, so check that out.
They did such a good job. And this was actually one of the main vignettes in the 1970s movie they did, as well, was All Through the Night. That's like the kind of the opener with Joan Collins, who takes the
Oh,
lead
shit,
in that
you're
one.
right.
I know, right?
That's yeah.
And so it is. It's just, and even that that movie or that part of the movie is exactly the same in the series because they did it just like the comic book.
Yeah.
In my head, and for some reason, I was thinking this was the pilot of Tales from the Crypt, but it's not, right? I don't know. Maybe this is on like a lot of the ads for the show that HBO put on, just because it's like deranged Santa Claus. But
Yeah, well, it's a
Yeah,
it's a big one. It was a huge part of the EC issue and stuff itself. And I share it every Christmas. I share all 12 pages. It's so good.
As an aside, as a newish parent, the whole like sub storyline of the daughter, just like,
I know, right?
well, so I do have I'll say this: modern movies and television shows have gotten so savvy, you can't get away with certain things that I'm going to point out in this episode. So this is a minor spoiler for those of you not seen this, but the mother gets trapped in the closet and the handle comes off the door. That was great. And she's there because she's trying to get a gun to defend herself. And then she looks out the window and there's evil Santa with a ladder climbing up. I'm like, she could have just taken the gun and shot him dead right there.
well, but here's the thing. I was watching that, and granted, I watched this before they dropped on Shudder, so I was watching the YouTube version, which might have been an edited version for the more PG version of it or something. I don't know, but I saw the gun in the closet. It was on top of the box, but like she like didn't see it, like, or something.
No, I think she just got distracted by him.
Is
and
that
then
what it was?
panicked.
Like, why?
Yeah.
Because I was like, why didn't
She'd
she
also
take it?
been drinking. That's
Well,
at the very beginning.
we
She's
can't
walking
fault
around
her
with a
for
drink, too.
that. I mean,
no, not at all. But I'm saying, like,
But-
she's in a state of enhanced alcohol. It's the holiday season.
Right.
She's nervous. She's panicked. Yeah.
I mean, if it was made today, what it would be like, she'd get the gun and then there wouldn't be bullets and then there'd be a shot of the bullets in a gun safe in the other part of that. Just to address that, like, that's not an option for her.
Right.
Though she could punch out the window and shut, whatever. But yeah, no, I always tend to notice those things because as a writer, I think of like, okay, is this foolproof when I'm doing this? What are things that people can't nitpick?
Yeah.
And that, but yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have that story had she done that.
What I really liked about it is that, I mean, this is like, keep in mind, 25-minute story. And it was so complex in the way that it dealt with the suspense, because you had the suspense of her killing her husband and will she get away with it. You had the suspense of this like killer coming to kill her, and you had the suspense of will her daughter catch her killing her husband.
Yeah.
Well,
or make it in general.
and also the cop's going to show up and she's got to deal with that. Like,
Exactly. I mean, when you put all that together, it's like you're like it's coming at you from all sides. It's
layered.
very well thought out, and the economy of storytelling is incredible.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And
definitely check it out.
And I do wonder, like, for the writers who wrote on Tales from the Crypt, if this was like a gift, because it's like the story, the panels are all there. You're just adapting it, which, you know, you probably would have kind of make it your own in some way. But now I'm really eager to read that issue to see like how it plays.
Yeah, I'll send you guys the stuff. I've got it all. Yeah, exactly. But again, going back to what Chris was saying earlier, it's 40 years before. So like nobody had really been around to still remember that. And because there was such a stigma with the comics code and there was all these trials, it was kind of one of these things where it got pushed down. You know, no one wanted to talk about it because it was one of those things back in the day. And so you've got 40 years later, people just adapting it. And it's like, yeah, it is like, you know, you literally have the art, you have the panels, you have the framing, you've got the words. So you just get the best people like, you know, Michael J. Fox or
Michael J.
Fox. Michael J. Fox, Catherine O'Hara, you know, Tom Hanks, you know, all these people, and then you get the best writers. It just seemed like it was just like almost kind of a collaboration of friends. You know, we've got these stories, we bought these rights. You guys want to come play with us? It's kind of what it feels like.
Right. And like, I mean, and also like a testament to how successful it was, right? If you can attract that level of talent, I imagine that they didn't get paid nearly what they were worth, you know, to do it. So.
Well, I mean, it's also as an actor, you're like, oh, I don't have to spend a month and a half or 3 months or whatever on a film, whereas like we can knock this out in a week, or I don't know how long it took.
Yeah.
So it could just be like pretty.
I bet you they did an episode a week or something. I mean, there's so many of them. How many did you say total? Like
92?
93.
Yeah. You know, in the way that TV shows were done back then, you know, it was like rapid fire because, you know, a lot of seasons were like 30 something episodes long. So
every Sunday I would creep over and like I had this very small television and I wasn't allowed to watch, you know, stuff like this. So as soon as my parents went to sleep, I'd get my little TV, get my little blanket and go hide. And I'd just be like, and then I wouldn't be able to sleep for the rest of the night because I just saw like 2 hours of people killing each other in gore.
I was lucky enough that my parents had HBO for at least the first couple of years of this. I think in like the early 90s is when we stopped having cable, but that's where I saw it. And I was telling you guys this, that like years later when it came out on DVD, I bought it and was going through it, and I was showing Anya an episode that she really got a kick out of. And this is when I had Netflix and it was the mail-in stuff, and I accidentally put my Tales from the Crypt DVD in the Netflix sleeve and sent it to them, and then I was stuck with whatever movie, and they're like, yeah, we can't just send that back to you because I don't think we had the series. I was like, God damn it, so I'm missing one of those.
Well, eBay's there for you.
What did you get in trade? What did you get to keep?
I don't remember at the time. I think they just were like, hey, we'll send you a bonus one this month or so, you know, just some bullshit. Though I do have something left over from Netflix because they switched over.
Peter just has the
so I guess we're
live
even.
Action Scooby-Doo movie now instead of Tales
I
from the
mean,
Crypt.
like number 2 is amazing. James Gunn did that. Monsters Unleashed is an incredibly well adapted Scooby-Doo series. Next to Tales from the Crypt,
Right.
I could easily spout out about Scooby-Doo.
I'm sorry I made a joke about it.
I've not seen the live action Scooby-Doos.
Yeah, number 2 is the best. Again, that's James Gunn's like big step into from like, you know, Lollipop and some of his like other stuff that he had done to where he came into the big.
Well, I will
bigger
say, I
IP.
think Matthew Lillard's Shaggy, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm a big
Perfect.
Matthew Lillard fan. And I don't know, this week he's talking about how people only, you know, he's having a resurgence because of nostalgia and nobody really likes him. I'm like, no. I like you.
Yeah.
You've been a fan. I've been a huge fan ever since Hackers came out.
Yeah.
You know? So,
13 Ghosts. My goodness.
again, SLC Punk. Classic.
Yeah.
Oh, Scream is, I guess, what I initially know him from.
That was good too. It's no Hackers, but you know, it's a great. Well, we probably better leave it there. Do you guys have any great fun plans lined up for the week? You to do anything cool?
I do. Tomorrow is Star Wars Day, May the 4th, and I've been invited to go out to the Grove to check out the first 25 minutes of the new Mandalorian and Grogu movie. And then there's going to be I think 25 or 30 minutes of unseen footage from the previous series they had on Disney. So yeah, I am taking
that brings up a good point that we're gonna have a little bit of a Star Wars episode next time, right?
It's true. I am taking my my sweet Ken with me. He is very well known in the Star Wars universe and knows more about Star Wars than anybody I know. And he has been talking about Darth Maul lately because that series is on, and kind of giving me more insight to the actual horrors and the darkness and to a lot of the stuff that comes from Star Wars that I had never really thought about. And I was like, oh, why don't you come talk the horror in Star Wars with us around the time of May 4th.
I'm actually very excited about that because I always, back in the day, you were a Star Wars fan or you were a Star Trek fan, and I like Star Trek, but I was drawn to Star Wars, I think, because it felt darker,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got all that in
It
his
had
head.
the action. I'm always impressed by Star Wars fanatics because that's like more information than I could store in my brain.
Yeah.
Like they know the whole universe, like every series, every movie, every character. I'm just like, all right, Darth Vader is Luke's father, right?
Well, I don't know, Peter. You have that, just this episode, I'm like, you have that all about horror.
Yes.
Well, and
I learned
also
so much from both of y'all.
yeah, and punk rock and stuff. So you do. You just it's like
I guess it's in a different direction,
or maybe it crowds out the Star Wars knowledge.
Could be.
For the last section of the day, Peter's going to take us on a little bit of an audio journey of his time at the International Sci-Fi and Horror Film Festival as part of the larger Phoenix Film Festival. A couple weeks ago, our short film Last Call had an opportunity to play the festival and in fact premiered there. And Peter was in and out in a 24-hour whirlwind to go support the premiere. A couple days later, Peter sat down to capture his experience in this audio diary, somewhat from the field. Enjoy.
Hey people, it's Peter. I'm basically relaying adventures at the Phoenix Film Festival this past Saturday when I went. It's where Christopher and I's film Last Call premiered. Although lack of sleep, I had basically I need floss for my beta amyloid plaques that have built up in my brain, but I did get 9 hours of sleep yesterday, so I'm doing a little bit better. Before getting into the fest, I want to congratulate Beyond the Streets, Roger Gassman, Joseph Padisal, Zach De La Roca, and of course Dead City Punks on their documentary that premiered here in LA on Thursday. Also, congrats to Jeff Alulis, Colin Moore, and Mike Shane, who are involved in that as well. The screening had 2 sold-out shows. I got to go to the second screening along with Christopher, and we had a blast. If you're not familiar with Dead City Punks, they're a hardcore band from LA, and they're known for illegal and crazy punk shows that sprout up basically within an hour's notice. It's seriously something out of fucking Escape from New York with a bunch of punk rockers and whatnot. Look it up online and you'll see what I mean. I've seen them live, and I would say it certainly lives up to the hype when they play. Basically, the documentary shows you how it really is at their shows, and it goes into their backstory. And I want to thank Roger for the shout out at the premiere. I got to help out, so it was really cool to be a part of what I think will soon be a legendary punk documentary when more people see it. There's currently an exhibit on the band at Beyond the Streets flagship gallery, so check that out if you live in the LA area. So that kind of kicked off things, my lack of sleep marathon. And I guess it's talking about the Dead City Punks documentary is sort of relevant because Joseph and Mike were integral to Last Call, getting it made and turning out as good as it did. And also Mecca, who plays guitar for Dead City Punks, was in Last Call. It's a small cameo bit, but he also did some graffiti that you would see at the beginning of the film. So thank you again, Mecca. So that was Thursday. Then Friday I went to work. Then Saturday I had to get up ass early to fly to Phoenix. And the last time I was in Phoenix was 2023, and it was 120 degrees. I went there to see the Misfits with AFI and Fear, and the show was outside, fortunately at night, but I was melting, as was everyone there. Interesting fun fact, I think AFI is the only band who's played with the Misfits, Samhain, and Danzig. I could be wrong because a couple of those are reunion tours, but I think they really are, but correct me if I am wrong. Anyway, when I got to Phoenix, it was only 80 degrees, which is normally hot, but by Phoenix standards is not too bad. So it was bearable. I flew in at 11:30. I dropped my shit off at the hotel, and I met up with Zombie, otherwise known as Chris Hernandez. He did a bang out job as a production designer on Last Call, and he's a stand-up dude. He's from Arizona, so this was his home turf, and he made the trek. So we caught a lot together. Last Call got accepted into the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival, which Zombie told me used to be its own thing, but is now part of the Greater Phoenix Film Festival. So it was all held at the Harkins Megaplex, which is like an AMC or Regal, based in Arizona. When we got there, I got my badge and gift bag. I scored Christopher a t-shirt since he couldn't make the trip. The staff were all super helpful and nice. One asked me what film I had, and I told her it was Last Call, and she had seen it and liked it, so that was a nice way to start things off. Before I get into the films, I'll just say that I was only there for a day, so everything was a bit of a mad dash. There weren't any parties, and I missed the seminars, basically, so I mainly just saw films. Though I did meet some really cool people that I'll talk about towards the end of this. The first film I saw was The Treehouse. It's a Spanish horror film directed by Luis Calderon. The logline is where this character, Ale's boyfriend, dies a violent death from falling out of a treehouse, which is really like a house in a tree. She goes back a year later to confront the presence with the deemed responsible. This comes out May 8th. It's interesting. There's some really wild shit that happens. It gets violent. It does have a trope I generally don't like, but I will say that they did something with that and added some context that kind of brought me back into it. Zombie and I then went and saw a documentary called Unfinished Work, directed by Stephanie Lucas, which is about how this guy, Eric Chavez, and his family, especially his mom, are kind of haunted by a tragedy when he's a teenager, and he learns to cope by having creative output. It was shot over 12 years, so he grew up during this whole documentary, and it's pretty cool. The family agreed to doing something when, you're that vulnerable. And so I enjoyed and appreciated that. The thing I was most excited about to see, and I didn't think I was going to, and I'm probably going to screw up the name, but it was Carolina Caroline, which is directed by Adam Carter Rehmeyer. He's basically probably my favorite director the last few years. I love Dinner in America and Snack Shack. I thought that was brilliant. And this is another feather in his cap. Caroline is a crime road trip with a great entry point where Samara Weaving's character takes a shine to Kyle Gallner, his character, who's this charming conman. There's chemistry and a budding romance that emerges as they drive across the South while he teaches her his ways, and these petty crimes amount to things that are a bit more serious. Rehmeyer's movies are entertaining, and they have so much heart and really emotional impact, and that was all on display here. I just love how he taps into humanity in all of his characters, even though his movies are vastly different. So yeah, I was stoked to see that, and it surpassed my expectations. So keep an eye out for it. It comes out June 5th. I was hoping he was there because I'd love to meet him, but sadly he was not present. So towards the end of the night is when Last Call premiered. It played the festival 2 other days that I didn't miss, so this was like the third final showing of it, but it was part of the Horror Block A that went on at 10:10 p.m., and it was sold out, which was really cool because not everything sold out, and this did. So that was pretty exciting to see. And yeah, so I'll get into the shorts, I guess, the other ones, just so people can keep an eye out for these. The first one was Scissor Sleepover by Nee Kirschman. It's very vibrantly pink, and it's like this campy sleepover with these ladies that goes horribly wrong. Amazing color and production design on that one. Then there was Round the Corner by Russ Emanuel, who he was present and I got to talk to after. Hi, Russ. That featured Kelly Maroney, you might know from Fast Times at Ridgemont High or Night of the Comet. And that's kind of this quirky bit that focuses on a suburban COVID zombie homeowner tiff situation, I guess you'd put it. There was also The Companions, which was a Spanish film by Jose Maria Flores. Treehouse was also Spanish, I forgot to mention that. And I think there was a wreath at the beginning. This got an Oscar nod. I don't want to say too much about this, but it was really impressive. I feel like it was one take, though I kind of noticed that halfway through. And there's a musical component. The way that it was blocked and unfolding was pretty compelling. Next was Penelope by actress Fiona Ray, where we follow this undead girl who has to build her army of undead to make her dad happy. It's playful and charming. Made me laugh a couple times. I like the production design on this as well, and I could be wrong, but I think it was the opening shot of the house was from the house from People Under the Stairs, though in LA there's a lot of houses that look like that. Next up, there was Praying Mantis, which is this wild animation film directed by Joe Hasea. I'm probably butchering his last name, I apologize. And it's where we got a praying mantis mutant who seduces men to help save her child. It's really bonkers in kind of a liquid television way in the 90s on MTV, if you ever saw that. But this was a bit like a hard R, I would say. And then last, there was These Colors Don't Run, which was directed by Chris Esridge. It's kind of got a Friday the 13th thing going on. A mass killer is stalking a camper, and the killer's emotion are on display. So those were the other shorts. Last Call actually played second, and I got to participate in a Q&A. I unfortunately was like seated towards the front of the theater, so I couldn't really watch the audience's reactions, but we did get a couple laughs and responses here and there, so that was cool. The Q&A was fun. I have not done one, I don't think. So that was a little new to me. Then afterwards, we hung out in the lobby, and some people came up and talked to me about the film. They said some kind things, which was great. So I want to shout out Jeremy Bridges. He's an Arizona filmmaker I met. Yong Tan, who's a composer, Russell Emanuel, who I mentioned, who directed Around the Corner, and Leela from Wildscar Entertainment. I'll butcher her last name, so I'm not even going to attempt that one. And I also spent a lot of the time talking to Jason and Kylie from Sinister Cinema Reviews. I met them during Caroline, and they were awesome. Really glad I connected with them. But had to cut it short because at this point it was like 1 a.m. or going on 1, and I had to be up at 4:30. So overall, it was fun. It was short, but that is my update from the Phoenix Film Festival.
All right, well, tune in next week for our conversation with Tacitus Ken
Knapsack of the
Knapsack.
Force Center podcast.
There you go.
Knapsack.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's going to be a real fun episode.
Game on.
So, yeah, bring it on. Cool.
Awesome. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's going to bring us to the end of today's episode of Nightmare Logic. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed our conversation about Tales from the Crypt, as well as Peter's dispatch from the International Sci-Fi and Horror Film Festival in Phoenix. And for today's show notes, you can go to our website at nightmarelogic.net and follow us on Instagram at NightmareLogicPod. We'd like to give a big shout out to our composer, Lars Lang Peterson, for our awesome score. And join us next week as we talk to Star Wars expert Ken Knapsack about all of the ways in which horror and darkness permeate the heart of Star Wars. Until then, take care.